Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we'll be discussing more on a slightly different from our technical subjects, something on a general knowledge on the crisis that has occurred in Suez Canal in March 2021. Let's understand what exactly is this and what was that crisis. If you see, you would have seen that the huge container ship has run aground and has blocked the traffic in the Suez Canal, one of the world's busiest waterways and the shortest shipping route between Europe and Asia. The 400-meter long Ever Given container ship ran aground early on March 23rd as it traveled north from Red Sea towards the Mediterranean, twisting diagonally across the width of the canal. This is what we are seeing in the figure. The canal in Egypt, and it connects Port Said on the Mediterranean Sea to the Indian Ocean via the Egyptian city of Suez in the Red Sea. The canal enables more direct shipping between Europe and Asia, eliminating the need to circumnavigate Africa and cutting voyage times by days or weeks. Otherwise, if it has to travel the entire Africa and come. Suez Canal, a sea-level waterway running north-south across the Isthmus of Suez in Egypt to connect the Mediterranean and the Red Seas. The canal separates the African continent from Asia, and it provides the shortest maritime route between Europe and the lands lying around the Indian and Western Pacific Oceans. It is one of the world's most heavily used shipping lanes. The canal extends 193 kilometers between Port Said in north and Suez in the south, with the dredged approach channels north of Port Said into the Mediterranean and south of Suez. The Suez Canal is an important open cut without locks, and though extensive straight length occur, there are 8 major bends. To the west of the canal is the low-lying delta of the Nile River, and to the east is the higher rugged and arid Sinai Peninsula. Now let's see, where is this Suez Canal? Since it was completed in 1869, the Suez Canal has been one of the world's most important bodies of water, a portal between east and west that has been controlled by multiple countries, threatened to ignite war and become a bedrock of the global economy. Now, why is this Suez Canal so important? If you see it in this graph, the 193-kilometer waterway Suez Canal, which connects Asia and Europe, is so important to world trade that powers have fought over it since it was completed in 1869. About 12% of the world trade passes through the canal each year. You can imagine the quantum. Everything from crude oil to grains to instant coffee. Without Suez, a supertanker carrying Mideast crude oil to Europe would have to travel an extra 6,000 miles around Africa, Cape Town in this route. Cape of Good Hope, adding some $300,000 in fuel costs. Because it has no locks, it can even handle aircraft carriers. The canal's location makes it a key link for shipping crude and other hydrocarbons from countries such as Saudi Arabia to Europe and North America. Among other goods, 54.1 million tons of cereal passed through this canal, 53.5 million tons of ores and metals, and 35.4 million tons of coal and coke in 2019 alone, giving us the quantum of transportation that takes place. Now, why is Suez Canal so important? That's the main question. The importance of the canal stems first and foremost from its location. It is the only place that directly connects water. Here, if you see, right, of Europe and with the Arabian Sea, the Indian Ocean and the countries of the Asia Pacific. Without the Suez, shipments traveling between those parts of the world would have to traverse the entire continent of Africa, adding hefty costs and substantially extending their journey times also. A solution to that problem appeared elusive centuries until the precious 120-mile waterway was constructed in Slitterdown, Egypt, into the Red Sea. It was built over the course of a decade in the mid 19th century, a feat only possible because the Mediterranean and Red Seas were found to be roughly level in altitude. That's also a very significant factor. The time saved by the passage is almost invaluable. Today, a ship traveling from a port in Italy to India, for instance, would cover around 4,400 nautical miles if it passed through the Suez Canal, a journey that at a speed of 20 knots would take about 9 days. But the second quickest way to complete that same journey would be via the Cape of Good Hope and around Africa at the same speed. It would take 3 weeks to traverse the route, which is 10,500 nautical miles long. The canal's strategically important position now means it hosts nearly 19,000 vessels each year, according to Lloyd's List, a shipping industry journal. Now let's see the history of Suez Canal. A passageway connecting the Mediterranean and the Red Sea had been longed for by nation states for centuries, and the canal's importance was clear long before construction began. But the canal remained under British control until Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized it in 1956, sparking the Suez Crisis that drew threats of invasion from Israel, France, and Great Britain. The episode threatened to cause war until pressure from the United States and diplomatic efforts from the nascent United Nations forced resolution. The Suez has been shut down before. For 8 years in 1967, it became a border between a warring Egypt and Israel, a conflict that left more than a dozen ships known as the Yellow Fleet trapped in the canal for the duration of the war. Now let's see which country controls the Suez Canal now. The British powers that controlled the canal through the first two world wars withdrew the forces there in 1956 after years of negotiations with Egypt, effectively relinquishing authority to the Egyptian government led by the President Gamal Abdel Nasser. It is his credit for getting this Suez Canal. Now let's see why the traffic has been halted during March 2021. The Ever Given vessel was blocking the southernmost stretch of the canal, which has a single lane, meaning no other ships can pass. In 2015, Egypt opened a second lane for simultaneous two-way traffic on a 35-kilometer stretch of the canal, but the extension lies further north beyond an area where the canal widens into the Great Bitter Lake. The Suez Canal Authority allowed a convoy of ships to enter the canal from its northern end at Port Said on March 24th, hoping that the Ever Given would soon be freed, but the vessel have dropped anchor in a Great Bitter Lake waiting area. And then if you see how did the ship get stuck here, this is the width of the canal and this is the length of the canal. You can see what is the length of the canal here and what is the length of the thing. Now the 400-meter long Ever Given vessel container ship ran aground early on March 23rd, 2021 as it traveled north from Red Sea towards the Mediterranean, twisting diagonally across the width of the canal. The principal causes were high winds and a sandstorm that reduced visibility and rendered the ship unable to keep a straight course through the channel, according to the Suez Canal Authority. As the incident happened, stormy weather was buffeting Egypt, forcing the closure of several Mediterranean and Red Sea ports. However, the head of Egypt's Suez Canal Authority, Osama Rabi, said Saturday that technical or human errors may be to blame for the grounding of the giant container ship in the crucial waterway. When ships enter the Suez Canal, they are boarded and steered through in convoys with the help of one or two tugs. Occasionally, they get stuck, but are usually freed quickly with little impact on other shipping. Now, let's see how the ship has been freed. At least 8 tugboats, one with a towing power of 160 tons, have been used to free the ship by pushing and pulling it away from the banks with the help of the ship's own winches. Diggers have been used to clear the earth at the ship's bow, which was buried in the canal's eastern bank, and the Suez Canal Authority has deployed 2 dredgers. Local maritime sources said ballast water, which is used to help stabilize ships, has been offloaded from the Ever Given and efforts to refloat it. Now, after this incident, let's see what happens. These are the ships that were stranded because of the uh, the struck when the Ever Given ship was struck. Now, what happens with the incident? What the crisis cause? Several ships are nonetheless already choosing to detour away from the blocked canal. Marine traffic monitoring websites and shipping data intelligence firms are reporting. Even before the Ever Given ran aground in Suez Canal earlier this week, and in March 2021, global supply chains were being stretched to the limits, making it much more expensive to move goods around the world and causing shortages of everything from exercise bikes to cheese at a time unprecedented demand. More than 80% of global trade by volume is moved by sea, and disruptions are adding billions of dollars to supply chain costs. Globally, the average cost to ship a 40-foot container shot up from $1,000 last June, 2020 June, to $4,570 on March 1st, 2021, according to a Standard & Poor Global Plans. It remains unclear whether and how severely the blockage of the canal will affect consumers. But Commerce Bank analysts said that a note to clients that the episode would cause oil to become more expensive for consumers because of higher tanker rates as the result of the incident. So that's all about the Suez Canal crisis that occurred in March 2021 for your knowledge. Thank you very much.